Hi everyone, welcome back to So Arizona. Today I'm here in my garlic bed that I'm going to be prepping and planting for garlic this fall. And that is exactly what we're talking about in this video. How do you prepare your space and how do you prepare your garlic for planting? So if you are watching this video and you're ready to plant, I'm going to assume that you already have your garlic here in front of you. And if you don't worry about that. There is still a little bit of time to order your garlic so that you can plant it this fall. I ordered my garlic last season from Keen Garlic Farm, and it's a company that I've used actually for several seasons, and I've had great luck with them. Luckily, last year I had such a good harvest that I am going to be using some of my own garlic to replant this bed for this season. But Keen Garlic Farm did send me a box of different types of garlic to try, which I'm going to do, but I'm going to do that in a little bit later video because those are hardneck varieties, and today I'm planting softneck varieties because I am in southern Arizona where we have very mild winters, and softneck varieties tend to do better in this kind of climate. If you're wondering about all of the other types of garlic, I have another video that I did just recently on the 10 different kinds of garlic that you can try. So you've got hardneck and softneck, but then underneath those you have different types of garlic, much like varieties of vegetables, and each of those has different characteristics. So if you are interested in that video, you can check that out. I will put that here, and I will also put it in the description box below. So let's talk about the space that you plant your garlic in. The quick answer is full sun. Garlic is a sun lover, and it needs at least 6 hours of sun to do well. Keep in mind what is going on with garlic. You've got the above ground portion of the plant, or the leaves, and then you have the below ground portion, or the root and bulb. So just like with other plants, garlic's leaves are going to be absorbing the energy from the sun and then sending all of that energy down into the root of the plant. And that is very important for root vegetables because that is how all of that solar energy gets stored in the bulb or the root. And that is exactly why we want to grow garlic, for the delicious bulb, so that we can take that into our kitchen and enjoy the garlic flavor for months to come. So location is really important. So make sure wherever you plant your garlic, the first decision is plant it in the sunniest spot in your garden. Like other root vegetables like carrots or parsnips or potatoes or onions, garlic needs loose, well-draining soil. It is really hard for a bulb to develop in the ground if it's rocky or if it's very hard. So the first thing you need to do is make sure that you have nice, loose, well-draining soil. I practice no-till gardening, which means that apart from starting these beds, I don't till them from season to season. Instead, I will add compost to the top, and then I will go through and just aerate it. Now you can use a broad fork, which looks like a really, really wide pitchfork, maybe 2 or 3 of them put together. I don't own a broad fork, so I just use my pitchfork, and that works just as well. It just takes a little bit more time. But if you're working in a smaller space, then that shouldn't be a problem, and you can save the money and the space of having to store an even bigger tool in your shed or wherever you store your garden tools. You can go through and you can push the pitchfork or the broad fork into the soil, and then you can just move that tool back and forth and then take it out and then do it again just a few inches away. And you just go up and down the rows, and this is going to aerate the soil, and it's also going to provide some drainage holes that the water can then better penetrate the soil and hydrate it for the upcoming growing season. This is also the time that you need to weed your garden bed. Garlic does not like competition, so if you have any weeds or Bermuda grass like I have in my soil, you want to remove that right away. This is also a really important thing to consider when you're putting your garlic into the ground. Don't plant them too close because then they'll compete with one another. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I don't want to talk about garlic spacing just yet. We'll get to that later in the video. Garlic is a very heavy nitrogen feeder, so you want to make sure that you've got enough nutrition in your soil to sustain the garlic through the entire growing season. And for garlic, that's a really long time, up to 9 months. So when you're thinking about starting your garlic bed, you want to think about making sure your soil has plenty of nutrition in it. So what I like to do every season before I start my garlic is add a layer of compost to this. So I added a layer of 2 to 3 inches of organic compost first. And then after that, to restore the nitrogen to the soil that may have been used up from the corn that I grew here during the summer, I also added a nice dose of organic blood meal to the soil. And organic blood meal is going to provide a lot of high nitrogen to the soil when you add it to that. If you're worried that your soil is depleted overall, you could add a nice balanced fertilizer, and that is going to provide equal parts nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So when you look at the front of a fertilizer bag, it has 3 numbers. The first one is nitrogen, the second one is phosphorus, and the third one is potassium. And with a balanced fertilizer, those numbers should be close in value. If you just want to add a high nitrogen fertilizer, of course you're looking at that first letter or number on the bag, and that is going to be your nitrogen value. So with organic blood meal, it's about 12% nitrogen, and that is what I use on the soil. Really, the best practice is to do a soil test before you plant your garden bed so that you have a chance to amend it with whatever it's lacking before your season starts. I test my soil about every 2 years, and when I originally built this garden, I had the soil tested, so I knew exactly where I was starting from. So a soil test will save you from wasting time and money by applying fertilizers that your soil doesn't need, or it will save you the frustration of having a poor outcome if your soil is deficient in something and you need to add that specifically. So just getting an overall clear picture of where your soil is at is a really good idea, especially if you're starting out with new garden beds, but I recommend repeating that every couple of years. I use IAS Labs up in Phoenix, and I will provide that link in the description box below for you if you would like to use them too and you're local to Arizona. If you're not local to Arizona, you can just check with your nearest county extension office, and I'm sure that they can point you in the right direction for your area. I add my compost and my blood meal to this bed a few weeks before planting my garlic, and I keep the irrigation on even though this bed is empty because it's important for it not to dry out. You have a lot of great soil microbes and fungi and all sorts of soil creatures that are important for the health of your soil and your plants, and they need water just like you and I do to be able to function well and stay healthy. So don't let your soil dry out in between seasons, even if the bed is going to be empty. So once I put in my amendments, I will water it in really well and then keep the irrigation on. Now that we've talked about all of that, let's talk about how to prep your garlic for planting. Whenever I talk about growing garlic, I always get asked about whether or not vernalization is necessary. So first, let's talk about what vernalization is. So vernalization is exposing your garlic cloves to a period of cold, usually between 4 to 10 weeks of temperatures of around 32 to 40 degrees, and your normal refrigerator is great for this. This cold period mimics winter conditions, and once you take the garlic out of the refrigerator, it will tell the garlic that winter is over and is now time to grow and form a bulb. There are different types of garlic that do better in different regions, and if you're in the Southwest like I am, or another climate that is very mild in the winter time, you might want to try soft-neck garlic because that does not require a period of vernalization, and it does better in warm, mild winters. It doesn't mean that you can't grow hard-neck garlic. You can. There's always a type, particularly Creole, which is a hard-neck garlic that performs really well in warmer climates. But in general, if you're in a northern climate with a cold winter, hardnecks will do better. And if you're in a southern climate where you have mild winters, softnecks will do better. Like I said, I did a video on the different types of garlic, and in it I talk about which types of garlic, hardneck and softneck, do better in colder or milder climates, and the exceptions to those that might do well in a climate that they weren't originally adapted to. So check that video out for sure. Softneck type garlics are better adapted to growing in milder climates during the winter, and those are going to have 2 types. Those are artichoke and silver skin. And these garlics that I have right here are the garlics that I grew in my garden last year, and I harvested them in the late spring, and I stored them in my house, and I've been eating them, and they have been delightful. But I'm also saving the very best cloves to be able to plant in my garden. So I have mainly artichoke softneck varieties, and then I also have 2 silver skin softnecks. All right, so you have the location for planting your garlic chosen. You have amended and aerated your soil. You've watered everything in well, and hopefully you have your garlic and you're ready to go. If you've done all of those things, then you are ready to plant. And I'm going to talk about a couple of different things that you need to do ahead of time, and that is sterilization and a fertilization soak. If you've purchased your garlic from a supplier, or you maybe got it from a friend or anybody else and it has been grown someplace else other than your garden, you just can't ensure that there are no pests or diseases present on those cloves. You can make sure to choose from a reputable supplier that maybe has some certifications and has good growing practices, but even still, just to make sure, it's always a great idea to do a sterilization soak first. There are three main reasons to do a sterilization soak on your garlic, and that is to kill fungus, it's to kill nematodes, mainly the bloat nematode, which is common for garlic, and to kill any mites that might be present on those garlic cloves. And those things like to hide out in the skins of garlic, and just when you plant them, you may not know that they're present, and then you're introducing those things to your garden bed, which you don't want to do. So doing a sterilization soak is not going to protect your garlic from any diseases or pests that are already present in your soil. It's just going to remove them from the garlic cloves that you are planting. So make sure you've got healthy, pest and disease-free soil, and then you can also add your disease and pest-free garlic cloves, and you should be good to go. Since I'm using my own garlic seed here, I know that my soil does not have any pests or diseases present in it. I harvested this from my own garden last year, and I'm just replanting it this year. So I'm not going to be doing the sterilization soak on these garlics that I'm planting today, but I am going to show you how to do it. Let's talk about how to prep your garlic cloves for planting. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. So first you start with your garlic clove, and I want to show you something that is present on this one. So I'm going to get a little bit closer. Do you see this kind of dark black looking, it looks kind of like mildew? If you see this present on your garlic bulbs, that's okay. It's not harmful. You can still eat the garlic if you have it in the house, and you can still plant the garlic if you're using this bulb to plant in your garden. This is just aspergillus, which is a harmless cosmetic mold, and it's generally caused because you didn't have enough airflow wherever you were storing the garlic or wherever the garlic was stored. So don't worry about that. Usually you can just peel the paper right off, and it is on that first layer or two of paper, and you can just get rid of it that way. So I'm going to peel this, and as I do, I'm going to explain what you're looking for when it comes to separating out your garlic cloves. And just so you know, this process is called clove popping or clove cracking, which I think is really cute. When I'm choosing the garlic bulbs that I want to use, I'm looking for the very best ones. I don't want any that are small like this. I want cloves that are nice and big and plump, and so those are the kinds of garlic bulbs I'm choosing. First of all, I'm just going to peel the garlic wrapper off, and go ahead and throw those papers on the ground. It's not going to hurt your garden a bit. So once I get done with peeling all of those off, I'm going to be separating these out. And even when you have a really nice head of garlic, you'll get some cloves that are really nice and plump like this, but then as you work your way towards the middle, you're going to have puny little cloves that you really want to just put aside. All right, so I have two different cloves. These are both from the same head of garlic, and you can see the one is really, really nice, and the other one really is pretty small. So I'm not going to plant this one at all. I will put this to the side, and I can either eat it, or maybe if you have a spare flower pot, you could stick it in there. But really, you shouldn't waste your space in your beds for small cloves. You want to just go for the biggest and the best. Once you get these all separated out, they're going to just look like this. And we can move on to how we prep with a sterilization and a fertilization soak. What about if you get a clove that's missing the paper, or the paper falls off as you're separating all those cloves from the bulb? What do you do then? You don't want to purposefully peel the garlic. You want to leave it with the paper on. But if you do get a garlic clove where the paper has either fallen off or it came missing, you can still plant that. So don't worry about that. If you have a nice big clove and it has lost its paper, just go ahead and plant it. You also want to look at the root plate, and that is the bottom or the flat part of the garlic. If this is damaged, or there's little chunks missing, or there's mold present, or anything like that, you want to pitch that garlic. Do not keep moldy or half rotting cloves, and don't keep cloves that have a damaged root plate, because they probably are not going to grow well at all, and then you will have wasted your time and space. The reason I'm choosing the bigger garlic bulb and the bigger clove is because generally that will result in a larger garlic head the following season that you can then harvest. So the bigger the bulb and the clove, the bigger your harvest is going to be. So that's why I try to be really picky about it. We only have so much garden space. Garlic takes a really long time, up to 9 months, and that is a long time to sacrifice that space. So if you're going to make the sacrifice, you want to make sure you're starting with the biggest and the best seed stock so that you can get the biggest and the best result. A great example is this. This one does have a little bit of clove formation, but if you've ever tried to grow garlic and you harvest it and it looks like it just didn't form the cloves, it's more of like an onion shape, kind of round, that's usually called a garlic round, and that can result from a few different things. One is just environmental conditions, maybe poor growing conditions, maybe it didn't get enough water, maybe you harvested it too early before the bulbs formed, maybe it didn't have enough sun, things like that. But it can also be because you started with really tiny garlic cloves and they just didn't develop into those nice, yummy bulbs of garlic that you were imagining you were going to get. So avoid the tiny ones and go for the bigger cloves. So these are the steps that you use, and these are the steps I'm going to be using for the hardneck garlics that I was given by Keen Garlic Farm that I will plant in a few weeks. But for now, let's go through the steps for you, because you probably did purchase your garlic or get it from someplace else besides your own garden. If you're planting several kinds, be sure to use different bowls for each variety and label them so you don't get them mixed up. You can use either 70% isopropyl alcohol, 3% hydrogen peroxide, or a bottom shelf vodka or Everclear. Pour that over your garlic cloves and cover them completely. You want to soak for 10 minutes and then strain this liquid out. If you've got other garlic varieties to sterilize, you can save the solution to reuse it for the next batches. Once you finish that, your garlic is going to be ready for the fertilization soak, which we're going to talk about next. So doing a fertilization soak before you plant your garlic cloves is a great idea because it just gives those cloves a little head start and a little boost. You can do a fertilization soak anywhere from 24 hours to 3 days. I prefer to do it overnight, and then I will get it out. And the reason for that is because I noticed that the garlic cloves will start to sprout tiny little roots after about 2 days, and then I run the risk of damaging those roots when I go to plant them in the garden, and I don't want to risk that. And so I like to just do it for 24 hours. If I have other batches, I'm going to mix up a new fertilization soak because I want to make sure that that is very fresh, and I'm not wasting the first one. I will pour that into my garlic bed on top of some of my seed garlic before I start over. So this is what I do for the fertilization soak. Put the sterilized garlic cloves into a container, pour a dilution of water and fish emulsion, kelp, or seaweed extract over the cloves. The ratio I use is 1 quart of water and 2 tablespoons of the fertilizer. Then I add 1 teaspoon of baking soda for each quart of water. The baking soda is going to help kill any bacteria present. Stir and soak for up to 3 days. I like to soak my garlic cloves for 24 hours and then plant them. All right, so now we have our cloves separated and we've got them sterilized and we have them fertilized, so we are ready to plant in the ground. And this part is really straightforward. So let's go plant a few cloves and I'm going to show you exactly how I do mine. One of the most important things for planting garlic for me is a tape measure, and that is so that I can get the spacing between the cloves correct, as well as the spacing between the rows correct. incorrect. That goes back to the garlic not liking competition. It doesn't like competition from the weeds, but it also doesn't like competition from its neighbors. And so when you plant your seed garlic, you want to make sure that you are planting it 6 inches apart. So plant your cloves 6 inches from one another as you go down the row. And then when you plant your rows of garlic, make sure that you are allowing between 18 and 24 inches of space between each row. And that's important not just for giving your garlic cloves the resources that they need to grow without competing with one another, but it also allows you to get in between your rows of garlic so that you can add fertilizer when it's necessary, so that you can weed when it's necessary, so that you can water it, or if you have irrigation lines in place, so that you can check on those irrigation lines and make the needed repairs if that is necessary. I didn't soak this garlic because I am just using this to demonstrate to you how I plant it, but I will be soaking my other garlic as I go through and plant this bed. So let's go look at what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go down the row and I'm going to plant each clove about 2 inches deep and then cover it with soil. And then I will space it 6 inches to the next clove that I'm going to be planting. I'm also making sure to place the garlic along the irrigation line so that it gets plenty of water while it's growing, because if it doesn't get consistent water and if it doesn't get enough water, then you are not going to get a good garlic harvest. I like to provide about 1 inch of water for garlic every week. And so for me, that ends up to be a 1 time per week watering in the winter and about twice a week once it starts to warm up in the spring. So this all is dependent upon your soil though. Sandy soil drains much more quickly, so you'll need to water more often, and clay soil holds on to water for a longer period of time, so you need to water less. So you need to determine for yourself what kind of soil you have and how often you should water. The next thing that is really important for garlic throughout the growing season is maintaining consistent temperatures and moisture, and you can do that by mulching your garlic. I'm using some leftover garden debris that I shredded up in little shreddy Kruger, and I am going to be doing it with that, but you can do it with straw or whatever it is that you use for mulch in general in your garden. So I just find that I really like to use my own garden mulch because I know it's free of pesticides and herbicides and other things that could be transmitted to my garden beds, and it's also free, which I love. Once you get your garlic planted and covered and mulched, then all you need to do is water it in well. And I will be back in a few weeks to tell you about how you're going to care for your garlic mid-season and then again as harvest comes near, because you can apply additional amendments to your soil a little bit later on, but I'm not going to talk about that right now because the most important thing is for you to get your garlic bed prepped, your cloves ready to go, and to get everything planted. If you have any questions about growing garlic this season, feel free to reach out to me via email. My email address is in the description box below. I will give it to you right now as well. It is kara@soarizona.com. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your garlic this year. I hope that you have a great garlic harvest. I'm Kara from Sow Arizona. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck with your garlic. Until next time, happy gardening.